This is Adam King from Aliens Don't Ring Doorbells, and you're listening to Madness to Creation.
Go ahead, say it.
Welcome to the Madness to Creation podcast, where self-care and music merge. This is Maddie. How are you? Hopefully you enjoyed the Blacklight District interview where he opened up about his opiate addiction. And on the 26th episode of the Madness to Creation podcast, this was a bit of a surprise one. I did not expect to randomly receive an audio file, and it's just a nice surprise to you all. And it kind of brings me back to high school where I used to jam this band, and the band is called KORN, and Mark Dean out of UK was like, hey dude, can I send you the Ray Luzier of KORN and KXM audio file to you? And I'm like, heck yeah. And I'm gonna tell you right now, this interview is a little bit archived, it's a little bit old, but nonetheless, it's a fun listen. And we really get inside the head of Ray Luzier in terms of how he balances playing with KORN and playing with KXM. And if you have not heard of KXM, they're basically a supergroup trio that's composed of members of KORN, Keen's X, and George Lynch. George Lynch, who is a part of Lynch Mob and Dokken. And I know that since the Black Lives Matter movement of 2020 and the movement that's still occurring right now, he dropped the name Lynch Mob. So we will no longer, based upon his wishes, we will no longer refer to it as Lynch Mob. We will refer to him as George Lynch. And this was just absolutely an interesting conversation on how Ray Luzier balances, KORN and the supergroup. And we really get inside a drummer's head on how he approaches things a little bit differently. And this is just an absolutely fun conversation. Obviously, you can find KORN and KXM everywhere. And I will provide links on madnessdecreation.com on KXM's music that you can check out. And also check out a 3-Count Photography by Ian Storck. He's an awesome photographer that's based in the Illinois-Wisconsin area. And he is providing the cover photo for Ray Luzier. We happened to photograph KORN during their performance before the COVID-19 lockdown, February 2020 in Rockford, Illinois, and he said it was just an awesome concert. And also find the Madness Creation podcast on Spotify, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, JioSaavn, and so much more. And without further delay, here's Mark Dean's interview with Ray Luzier of KORN KXM. Take it away, Mark.
How you doing?
I'm good. You're not having much of a break on your day off?
That's all right. I like talking about the new products coming out, and sleep is optional on the road anyway, so we're all good.
Okay, KXM are about...
What time is it in the UK?
It's 7:20.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Okay, KXM are just about to bring out the third album. I just wondered, when you got together initially just to jam, did you envisage a longevity for the band?
We did not. As a matter of fact, George, Doug, and I have always respected each other's bands that we're in, and we've respected each other's musicianship. And I think if it wasn't for me throwing a birthday party for my son that turned 1 8 years ago, I don't know if it would have ever happened, which is kind of weird. But we ended up after the party in my little studio in Los Angeles, and Doug, George, and I were messing with my guitars and drums and talking about stuff, and George just looked around and said, "This would make a great band," and we all kind of laughed, like, "Yeah, right. Like, how's that going to happen when KORN's so busy, King's X, and Doug, George is in 7 bands, and
yeah,
it didn't seem possible or probable, and then we said, let's just get together and see what happens, and then turns out we got along really well musically, and that doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes you get together with someone that you really respect, but you can't mesh in the studio or whatever. And the unique thing about KXM is there's no pre-production. There's no let's get together and rehearse for weeks and then go in the studio. We literally walk in no riffs, no nothing, and completely blind, and put the headphones on and let the tape roll and see what we come up with. And by 6 or 7 p.m., we're cutting drums for the record and rhythm guitars and bass. So it's a really unique way to do it, and we've done all 3 records like this.
Yeah. Each of the albums, they sound different. I feel. Do you feel that just comes from getting to know each other as people, as musicians, or do you sit down when you come to jam out a new album and with the sole purpose of creating something different each time in terms of the band sound?
Yeah, there's no, we don't sit down and have a meeting and say, hey, let's make this one darker, let's make this one lighter, or what, it's, as everyone knows, musicians are emotional babies. We're very fragile people, and the feel and soul that comes out of us when we play has a lot to do with how the music sounds. So, but each effort, was scatterbrained. We didn't say, hey, let's make this a little bit more progressive, and then Circle of Dolls, let's make it a little bit darker. We just literally go with what's going on in our lives at the time. Doug had some things going on with his family when we were writing Circle of Dolls, and I think he come out a little bit darker than normal, and that's just because that's the moment of time. There was no real discussion though, like, hey, let's aim towards this. We literally just did the same format, got in there and said, hey, here's this song, and there's one song that has a dobro guitar on it, and that's only because there was a dobro guitar leaning up against the studio wall, and of course anything George Lynch touches becomes gold. So he started playing a riff on that, and I'm like, wait, what are you doing? And then we started recording with the phone, and then next thing you know, a song is born. So it's literally just like that format.
Do you find though that sort of free-form creation of music has really challenged you more as a drummer? Obviously in KORN, there's a set way of how KORN sound, but with these other 2 musicians, you've got more, as I say, freedom, really.
Yeah.
To explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is about KXM, there's no producers. We have Chris Collier, his nickname's the Wizard because he's so good at what he does that, he has the outside ears and co-produces with us, but there's no, with KORN and many of my other bands, with even great producers like Nick Raskulinix, who has done the last 2 KORN records, he really has a lot to do with each note of everything that's played. With KXM, it's all us. The whole rule is I don't tell Doug what to play, Doug doesn't know what George what to play, and that's the format. Like it's 100% us. Like I said, Chris Collier will listen to the whole package and go, you're getting a little too much like this, or you're repeating this part too many times, or he's a great outside ears for that. But for the most part, it's 100% us playing, which is a great thing to put on and crank up, because there's nothing holds you down, and that's more challenging for me as a drummer, because there's a lot of things on the last a few KXM records I could never played in KORN, and that's what's great about the musical freedom of it. George plays nothing like he plays in Lynch Mob or his other efforts with KXM, and even Doug, the way his melodies, of course he's the vocalist and his bass tone is his bass tone, but he's even going outside the box a lot. So it's a really great thing to be a part of.
Obviously you guys have got busy schedules. You mentioned just there about other bands and stuff. What about live shows? Obviously the band's got longevity now. This is going to be your 3rd album. Fans want to hear those songs performed live.
Yes, they do, and it's my fault. KORN this is my October starts my 13th year with KORN, and no one has a crystal ball that I know of, so you never know what's going to happen. When I got the KORN gig, I remember Fieldy, the bass player, saying, "Yeah, we got about another year or 2 left in us," and I'm like, "Cool, man, I'm here. Let's do this," And here we are, 12 years later, full on a giant sold out tour with Alice in Chains and playing 14,000 seats every night. So you never know with something. So KORN's schedule up until about a year or 2 ago, when we got new management, was really busy. There's no quote cycle or anything. We just go. So there's no way to plan a side bands tour because that's, of course, my bread and butter, obviously. And it takes several months to prepare and promote properly a tour. So we don't want to go out, especially at this point after 3 records and half-ass anything. It's got to be done right. So I feel that a tour will definitely happen, whether it's even a small little run in the next couple years, because now we have all these catalog of songs to play. We got, I think it would be great to pick from those, but there's no, it would take a while to just rehearse because Doug would have to sing and play the bass parts, and I'm the only one that's ever played the songs live, or some of them in some drum festivals. If you go on YouTube and type in my name, you can type in, I've done Stars, I've done Calypso, I've done, a couple other ones that just playing to Doug and George. So it's live drums and to the record. So it's 1/3 live.
So it's a possibility. There's nothing concrete in terms of live dates.
I'm sorry?
So there's nothing concrete. There's no dates penciled in as yet.
Not yet. We're waiting to see what our schedules are coming up with. KORN's putting a new record out at the same time as KXM. So next year's gonna be a lot of touring for us, but we're gonna be doing I'll have more of a schedule. So that's what I'm gonna see when some time might open up for all 3 of us.
I think also that the format of the band would present really well live. I mean, it gives you that free form and bit of improv and stuff. I think the songs could obviously take on a whole new life rather outside of the albums.
Yeah, you mean live?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think they would definitely, like I said, most bands, it's unethical how we've done the record. So to most bands jam them. I mean, it took us a while this time to get all the KORN songs. We had 25 tunes. We narrowed down to 11, and that was through. We would actually take breaks and live with the songs a few weeks, and then go back. And when you're doing such a challenging thing as writing 1 song a day and tracking it that night, there's no time to overthink it or digest it. So a lot of bands would laugh at that. Most of them would, but that's just the format that we kind of do, and it's worked 3 times. George was even joking not long ago. He's like, "Hey, if we do a 4th effort, why don't we actually try to go in and do pre-production?" And we all started laughing. We're like, "Yeah, why not?"
I did read, I think it was another interview that you mentioned the 4th album. Have you anything written for that? Is that definitely going to happen?
We don't know. I mean, I would ultimately love to do some shows before we do that, because just for obvious reason, we keep getting offers. Even our friends, the Winery Dogs, asked us to go out with them, and I think it'd be great to support someone like that, Sons of Apollo, Winery Dogs, someone that we respect that would fill some clubs and theaters, and I would love to see how that would. We've even gotten rock cruise offers and things like that.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, the rehearsals for that first gig would be extensive because there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Just wondered then if we could move on to some general questions. Who would be the most influential musician you've worked with? Somebody
that's interesting. I'm very fortunate. Yeah, I'm very fortunate to work with a lot of great people. I mean, one of my favorite bands I was ever in was Army of Anyone, and that's with Robert and Dean DeLeo from Stone Temple Pilots and Richard Patrick from Filter. They're some of the most beautiful musicians to work with. They write such great, simplistic things that are just so catchy, and so definitely that was one of my favorite bands. I worked with Billy Sheehan a lot. I've done his last 2 solo records, Holy Cow and Cosmic Troubadour. We're actually working on just a bass and drum record right now.
Right.
And just what a great musician. Yeah, he lives by me in Nashville, Tennessee now, and we've been getting together a lot. And, but KORN is so unique in their own way. I love working with these guys because they have a beauty about what they do. No one really sounds like them, and I've worked with. You don't have to be a prog guy or play a million notes for me to feel it. I'm more about the feel than I am how many notes can you cram into a bar, so yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate to work. Of course, I got to play with Jeff Beck a few years ago at the Classic Rock Awards in Tokyo, and that was one of the highlights for me because Jeff Beck is Jeff Beck.
Yeah.
So,
of course, you're mostly known for your work in the rock music genre. I just wondered if there's any other musical styles or genres that you would like to do, maybe that would surprise people.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I got hired at Musicians Institute in Hollywood, California, years ago when I was quite young, in my 20s, because there was no rock programs there, and I was a student there in 88 to 89, and teaching at that school really made me. I mean, just goes to show you could never learn too much as a musician. You're always striving to play new things, and I realized how much I didn't know. Jazz, Latin, reggae, and different styles. So I really would push myself, and you have to build a vocabulary in your head. I always tell people you have to embrace it and listen to the styles to get it. You can't just try to play swing and jazz. You have to gotta go out. I was born and raised with no one telling me what to do. There was tons of rock in my family. Everyone was listening to Zeppelin, the Beatles, Ozzy, Kiss, and whatever. So I just grew up. That's all I knew. When I moved to LA, I was like, wow, what is this whole other world? So yeah, I'd love to venture out and do some other things. I mean, the Billy Sheehan record that I'm working on right now, I call it his, but it's both of ours.
Yeah.
We're definitely we're reaching out. There's some EDM tracks. There's some funk stuff on there. It's definitely not just rock, so it's challenging for me right now and him. So yeah, it's definitely fun.
Okay, just quick one then to finish. If the roles were reversed, who would you like to sit down and interview? Yourself?
That's interesting. That's a stumper right there, because there's hundreds of musicians I'd love to ask many questions about. I guess off the top of my head, Jimmy Page pops into my head just because I had a brief conversation with him at the Classic Rock Awards in Tokyo, and just what an interesting fellow. We talked nothing about music. It was all about his kids becoming vegans and just life stuff. So it was really cool to talk to such a one of the biggest legends out there about no music whatsoever. There was no like, hey, well, what was it like to work with John Bonham? Nothing. It was purely life, and that was just such a cool thing for me, and definitely an unforgettable moment. So I'd love to just sit and maybe, there's hundreds of others, and I don't know why that's the first thing that pops into my head. Yeah.
What about is there anybody, maybe a personal hero or inspiration outside of music? Somebody that's inspired you?
Anyone with positive attitudes always inspire me. That doesn't necessarily have to be a celebrity. It could be just there's a lot of people out there. The whole thing with celebrity status is, obviously people look up to them because they're in the public eye. They're on TV or radio and all over the internet. So, sometimes they say things that are good for the world, and some people are, as we all know, aren't that good of a soul. But you obviously have more of a megaphone when you're in the public eye. But I love anything that's anyone that spreads positivity and then does, let's face it, this world we're in right now, anyone's capable of doing anything, and it's kind of scary out there, and the events that are going down, and our minds are very powerful things, and if someone needs mental help or something like that, they should get checked out before bad things happen.
Yeah. Ray, that's great. Thank you very much. I'm just slightly over my time, so enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much for chatting.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. I
appreciate you taking the time, and it was good talking to you.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.
All the best. Bye-bye.